Welcome to episode 2 of the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven. It's Jeff Lerg, Chris Palmer again. Back today, we're going to talk about belief. Super important. What it is, what it's been in our lives, how we try to give it to other people. Jeff, I've got to ask you, one of the things we talk about all the time is I can see the gears going all the time in you. You're one of the most intense guys I know. You know all about trying to make things work, but there's no chance it works without belief. Can you please tell us, how do you think that belief developed in your life? You started as a kid, things were innocent, simple like everybody else, building blocks, playing around. Somehow you believed all of this was possible.
I was just a little engine that could. Growing up, that was the only reason I had success. We can see national championship 2007 as a sophomore in college. That was all from internal belief. It's the only reason I played as long as I did. Junior hockey player of the year, college hockey player of the year. The only reason I accomplished those things came from my internal belief system. And for me, it was ingrained as a youth athlete, and I kept that consistency driving throughout. It was really just a culmination of my consistent effort that made me keep showing up and build that belief system and keep having a high level of success.
People get what you were. I mean, it's so obvious what you were and really what you are. But in terms of the really building of that, I know belief was the thing. How do you think it was built? Because you told me it wasn't like you were born a 7 foot, a million, and some guy who's just made for the job. You were a guy who had things. You told me about asthma. You told me about being 5'5". How did you go from being a guy who had some things that don't look like it's going to be some easy path to being a guy who actually believed it was possible?
Goal setting was the biggest thing for me. I had small goals growing up, and when I took that consistent action and accomplished those goals, it gave me that internal belief to set a new goal and work toward accomplishing it. And the way I developed that as a young hockey player in the Metro Detroit market, when I was in the practice setting, I wanted to be dominant. And the only way that I developed that mentality, a little story, when I was growing up, Dominik Hasek was the goaltender for the Red Wings. He was a Hall of Fame goaltender. And I was young. My dad always used to read the newspaper, leave it out on the counter. And I remember for some reason picking up the sports section. I was reading about the Red Wings. And Dominik Hasek, I think, was probably asked the same question. How do you find this consistent level of success in your career? His answer, and it stuck with me, still does, is that he said in practice, every practice he went to, he had a goal himself, personal goal, to let up 5 goals or less. And I read that, and I was on a very talented youth team growing up, and I said, I want to let up 5 goals or less at the next practice. And I was not close to that. So I started to use that as my driving force every day at practice.
That's awesome. It seems so much different than what I went through. Because I think in my life, it wasn't about goal setting at first. It was about just the most core fundamental belief that I could do anything. You told me before, when you were growing up, you said you had a pretty good environment, right? People are pretty supportive around you. Was your environment pretty nurturing around you? And did people kind of believe in you too?
Yeah, I had great parents. So, of course, now being a father, you just think the best of your kids and you'll do anything to help and support them. My dad played hockey at a collegiate level. He played at Ohio State. So he understood the expectations and level of success that it took to be successful. And I watched him, the way he worked throughout his 9-to-5 job and then as the coach of my team. And it really helped me understand all the hard work that it takes to be successful. And I think that was the foundation of building high goals and then working toward accomplishing them. I think it was just a nurturing environment that helped keep pushing me along.
So really, tell me if this is right. It sounds like a couple of things. One, you wanted to really do this thing. You had some kind of desire to be really, really good in hockey. 2, you set goals. 3, you had people around you who believed in you. It's awesome. But you still had to have hit failure. So tell me how you kept belief during failure. You must have failure. Every goalie fails.
Yeah, that's the trifecta. I had many good things with my environment and the discipline to keep accomplishing those. Of course, as a goalie, a good save percentage is 90%. So that 1 out of every 10, you're failing at minimum usually in a game. And then the practice, it's way more than that. It's shot after shot, and you have to find ways to not get discouraged. So again, practice setting was I set these lofty goals of saying 80-minute practice. I want to let up 5 goals total or less. And there came a point where I started to do that on a more consistent basis. It was a lofty goal, but I was executing at such a high level because I just kept setting that goal and worked toward accomplishing it. My all-time best practice was in college at Michigan State. I let up 1 goal the whole practice, and it was, of course, not a surprise that I had a great weekend to play after that. So this was built throughout my youth. I was on a very good hockey team, and the way as a goalie, as you build your confidence on very strong teams, you're not often going to get that opportunity to display and showcase your skills in games because you might only end up with 8 to 10, 12 shots. So in practice is your time because you're with and surrounded by all the top players or many of the top players at your age level. So that was for me, I kind of figured out this trick. If I can stop my teammates, I can stop anyone. How about yourself? You get dealt with many athletes that call you, and I'm sure finding a way to believe in themselves is a very consistent topic that you have to work through with them. So as a mental performance coach, what's your most common theme?
Yeah. I think it's like this sliding scale of belief. And I really do think it's a sliding scale. I think you can have guys who are incredibly successful in their career. Let's look at guys in the NHL. When you're first getting in, you wonder if you're actually good enough. And then you get some success and you're good enough. And then you get some more success and you're good enough. But man, you get an injury. You get an ACL, you're out months, and you're wondering whether you can have a job. You're wondering if you're going to come back. I think it's a sliding scale of belief. And I think for every single person I've ever worked with, and it doesn't matter what level it is, every single person is at some percentage of 100% belief. And it's almost never 100%, except sometimes when you hit this kind of sweet spot moment where you feel like, I'm ready for this thing today. But with most people, their belief is variable, and it's based on the people who are most significant around them and whether those people believe in them. It's based on whether their habits are creating success for them, so they think what they're doing is really working. And what it's not based on is the BS thing that we hear all the time about this whole positive affirmation thing. Truthful positive affirmations are really valuable. Fake ones, fluffy ones, non-specific ones, it's garbage, and our brain knows it. So you can tell your kid, oh, you're great, you're awesome. Your coach can go, oh, you're wonderful, you're wonderful. But they can sense I'm not wonderful. When I'm out there and I'm trying to get stuff done and I'm just not effective that day, I'm not effective. You're failing that day. It's what happens. People have ups and downs. But for sure, false affirmations are not part of this. It really is this combination of you actually doing things, actually taking an action and finding some success, even if it's incremental, to start building belief, and then having an environment around you that supports and actually helps you believe in yourself because they believe in you.
You bring up 2 interesting points there. The positive affirmations and then also this nurturing environment. I know for me as a kid, my mom would tell me good game after every game. Now, there'd be times I'd let up 3 goals in the first 5 minutes, and she'd say, hey, good game, honey. And I said, thanks, Mom. It wasn't really my best game, but I think what she was doing, though, even though she was just doing it out of love and support, she was just creating this nurturing environment for me where I just wanted to get back up and do it again. So inadvertently, her saying good game was more just a term of endearment toward me and my efforts, which as we've already established, goaltending and every athlete, you're going to go through the ebbs and flows and failure more than success. And so interesting point that you brought up with the parental perspective. And one thing I've learned just as a youth coach is that as long as you can get the athlete to show up again and try to give their best efforts the next time, they're going to keep chugging along during the times of adversity. And for me, looking back, I think that was a big point of how I could handle the ups and downs of life as a goalie, that support. And also I knew internally that was not my best effort. I knew that it was not my best execution in my game. So although it might have been a positive affirmation, I didn't buy into it. I knew I needed more. I knew I needed these actionable steps in order to take the next step and get back on the success train. Similar to what you've brought up before, you brought up this McDavid story that we always talk about, our time at the Athlete Academy. We have a group of teenage students.
Yeah, I've got to be careful too because it's an F-bomb video. It's all public, but everybody's seen it. McDavid I think it was after game 3, he was furious, just lost his mind, and came in and just F-bombed his team about how upset he was. The real thing that stands out on this affirmation idea is this incremental step. Like, all he wanted, okay, yeah, this is big, we've lost 3, looks like we're going to fall out. But the great thing, if you get past the F-bombs, is that he's like, just one more. Let's just one more game. Let's just focus on that. And it's great because it took away all the noise. It took away all the distraction. Let's just do our job, which is the only thing you can ever do for one more game. It was great. But I want to mention the parent thing real quick too. Parents are so important in this. They're so important. And I've never met a parent who didn't mean well. I mean, I've never met a parent, even guys you'd call the crazy parents, I've never met a parent who didn't mean well. In the end, what the kids would need the most is that thing you're talking about with your mom. Your love, caring, support, and interest in their lives. That's what they want. And they don't want you to lie to them, but they also don't want you to over-critique them. And I'll go back to Breezeball and the Lightning. These guys have this book they give out to youth coaches. And they say that sports psychology says that ideally a 3-to-1 ratio of positive, truthful affirmations to every 1 constructive criticism. If you're a coach, if you're working with younger kids, 5-to-1. And if you're a parent, 10-to-1. I see it all the time. There's so many sessions we have where the kid just is worn down, and he's worn down because he feels like he's displeasing his parents, or in some cases, they misinterpret this not being enough in hockey as being conditional love. And it's sad, but once you get through that, especially some of the younger kids, you've seen it yourself. You've had kids come to practice like, God, where's your energy? The kid's beat down because he feels like he's never good enough. But the antidote's what your mom did, and the antidote's what you did. Have people around you who show love, support, caring. Parents are so important. And on top of that, do something actionable. Break the thing down. Like McDavid said, one more game. But you had another thing you were going to tell us about.
Yeah, that McDavid story gives me flashbacks of really my most successful defeat, we'll call it. And it was when I played professionally for the Toledo Walleye, which is Detroit Red Wings, their AA affiliate. Super passionate fan base in hockey town. Toledo hockey's been around for a very long time with good success at the minor league level. So I was fortunate to play there. I live an hour away. And so really worked for the point in my life, late 20s, early 30s, logistically close to family and friends, kind of helped me keep pursuing my path as a hockey player while I was performing my coaching business. And so we played for this Toledo Walleye, who the year before I had gotten there, this team finished dead last in the league. They were 32 out of 32. They wiped out the whole roster outside of one player. They brought in a new coach. This coach's name is Derek Lalonde. Worked his way up to the NHL level. I was previously with the Red Wings as their head coach. He built this whole brand new team. We went from worst to first. So this transformation of the team in itself was the definition of belief. You know, we had to start ourselves going from the whole season-long progress where even the fan base came out with some hesitation to get on board with this team. And eventually, before you knew it, that kind of transformed this franchise. And it turned them into this hotbed of a ticket in Toledo. You couldn't get a ticket by mid-year. Every game was sold out. This anticipation of how strong of a team we were. We went into playoffs as the number 1 team overall. We, again, finished with the most wins in the league. We got our way into the 3rd round, which is the divisional final, and we ended up playing against this team who finished the season the best-paced team in success. They won 28 straight games at one point. So they were super kind of hot going into the playoffs. So we got down in this series 3-0. We got down, we lost the first 3 games, all close, but we kind of hit a little rut, and they found a way to win the first 3. And to your point, same thing, similar to McDavid, the captain steps up, and our captain looked around the room. He looked every single one of us in the eye, and he said, "Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe?" And every single person had answered, "Yes, we believe." And then the next night, we got an opportunity to play in that game 4. My goalie partner actually went in and played that game. He did an awesome job. He jumped in, got us back on the right track. Over the next few games, our team had some lineup changes, and we started to believe. We won the 4th game, won the 5th game in overtime, won the 6th game in overtime, made our way all the way to game 7, and went into triple overtime. Other goalie on the other team and I both had a really strong game, do or die, game 7. So it was 0-0 all the way through regulation, first overtime, second overtime, and we lost with like 3 or 4 minutes left in the 3rd overtime. So for me, that's our most successful defeat because it was just such an emotional ride, but all at the core of it was this belief of just getting one and take that first step. And then all of a sudden the room started to transform.
It's awesome. I'll go back to this thing. Remember the coach who changed my life, Brent Haley, down in Largo years ago, being this 13-year-old kid. And I just remember him always saying, if you think you are, or you think you're not, you're probably right. If you think you're going to do good, or you think you're not going to do good, you're probably right. And this belief thing's the core of everything. I mean, I think that whoever you look at who's successful, I mean, you look at Michael Jordan and all the stuff he went through with his family, not thinking he's a good basketball player, not letting him play with his own brother, getting beat up as a condition to play basketball at his house with his brother, having his dad say, go in the kitchen with your mama, all these things so incredibly hard to deal with. But every single person, it seems like, tell me if I'm wrong, it seems like the summary of what we're talking about here is that belief is absolutely built one step at a time. It's built one experience at a time. It can be variable. You can do well and you can have your butt handed to you and it might knock you down. You have a chance to get back up. You at the walleye, you had a chance to fall apart or come up and give every single thing you have, which you did. Over and over again, it's built like this. And you can do it alone, but it's way better in a system. It's way better with support and people who believe in you, but it can be done alone, but it's one piece at a time and it's variable and it's something that you have to give everything to every time to have a chance for it to stay with you. Does that seem like a correct summary?
Yeah, exactly. And previously we chatted about how goal setting was a big part of my belief system at its core. And so that mission that you're trying to accomplish has to mean more to you than that feeling of quitting. You know, it has to be the driving force of, I want to accomplish that goal no matter what gets thrown my way. And when you start to accomplish those small goals, you keep believing in that big goal. So all those things that were discussed, the nurturing environment, the actionable steps, everything goes along with it. And I found it's more rewarding in the team environment at times than the individual environment. When you're in the locker room amongst your teammates and friends and counterparts and coaches, that feeling of knowing that you achieved something together is more gratifying to me, even though I was an individual as a goaltender in my own crease. That team environment of success was always the most rewarding. And it's all stems from belief. Super important for every athlete to establish their long-term goal and mission and then build along the way to use that belief as their driving force.
That's great.
That'll wrap up our second episode on our belief and how to establish it. And again, as always, follow us on our social channels, Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast.
One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.